In this video, I'll show exporting a PDF for commercial offset printing, sheetfed or web. I'll demonstrate in Mac OS. The steps are the same for Windows. Start with the InDesign document you want to export. For this demonstration, I have a mock magazine article, 12 pages. In Document Setup, bleed is set to 1/8 inch. To start, I'll be right to the point and get a PDF made, for those who just want to get it done. But stick around for more, when I show creating your own presets and explain the options used and why. To export a PDF, go to the File menu. Export. There is also the keyboard shortcut Command-E. On Windows, Control-E. The Export dialog opens to choose the location and format for the exported file. The location defaults to the location of the InDesign file. Navigate to another location if desired. In the Format list, choose Adobe PDF Print. I recommend enabling the option to name the PDF the document name. Then it's clear where the PDF came from. But you can always change the name to something else if you like. Click the button Save. Next, the Export Adobe PDF dialog opens. First is a list of presets to choose from. The built-in presets appear first in the list, and their names are wrapped in brackets. Select the preset PDF X4 2008 as a starting point, unless your printer has specifically requested PDF X1A or requested your PDFs are flattened. More about that later in the video. On the left is a list of categories, which each display a different panel of options on the right. We'll go through each category, starting with General. Set the pages to export, either all or arrange. Set Export As to Pages. Enable Embed Page Thumbnails. The next category is Compression. Provided you started with the X4 preset, the values are correct except for monochrome images. Set this to Do Not Downsample. The next category is Marks and Bleeds. Enable crop marks and page information. Please do not enable any of the others. The excess only annoys us prepress operators. Increase offset to 0.125 inch or 9 if working in points. Enable Use Document Bleed settings. This assumes document bleed is correctly set. If not, stop now and go back to make it right. The next category is Output. Set Color Conversion to Convert to Destination Preserve Numbers. This is important, and I'll explain why later in the video. For destination, select the profile for the color standard your printer uses. This defaults to the profile set in Color Settings under the Edit menu. If the default is not the right profile, choose another. If you're unsure of the right profile, use US Web Coded Swap V2. The remaining categories can be ignored for now. Click the button Export, and InDesign gets busy. PDFs are exported in the background, so you may continue to work if desired. To track progress, go to the Window menu, Utilities, Background Tasks. This panel lists the progress of documents exporting. Also, recent versions of InDesign display a spinning blue animation on the right near the top. That gets your PDF exported, but don't go yet. Now I'll show how to make your own preset. This not only saves time, it makes your PDFs consistent. Go to the File menu, Adobe PDF Presets. Define. As before, select PDF X4 2008 as a starting point. Click the button New. The list of presets is replaced by an input to enter a name for this one. I'll use PDF X-4. Omit the slash because it can upset computer file systems. We'll set the options just as before, but this time I'll slow down and explain the choices I recommend and why. Then you'll understand the options better. So when a situation requires a different choice, you'll know the right choice to make. First is the preset used as the starting point. I recommend PDF X4 2008. Earlier, I mentioned the preset PDF X1A. Some printers still ask for X1A. The difference is X1A renders transparency effects to images, also called flattening, rather than pass instructions to the output system for it to render the effects with higher quality. The X1A spec is over 20 years old, from a time when few output systems could process transparency. So to output correctly, we had to flatten PDFs. But not today. Now most printers have modern workflows capable of rendering transparency, so I recommend using the higher X4 standard that does not flatten PDFs. And just so you know, the real difference is the PDF version. You can see these in the compatibility list. The choices are versions of Acrobat, and in parentheses, the PDF version. PDF 1.3 does not support transparency. 1.4 began to support it, but not until 1.6 does it fully work, which happened around 2004. So 1.6 is the preferred version, which the X4 preset uses. Export as should be pages. Even if the document is a book or magazine set up as facing pages, your printer does not want PDFs supplied as spreads. Printers have specialized software to arrange pages for production, and it relies on PDFs of pages, not spreads. So always export as pages, unless the printer tells you otherwise. I enable page thumbnails so they appear in my prepress workflow, without additional processing to create them when they're missing. This isn't vital to enable, but since thumbnails don't increase file size much, there's little harm in including them. The next category is compression. For quality printing, color and grayscale images should be at least 300 pixels per inch. Bicubic downsampling is better quality. In my experience, JPEG compression at maximum quality produces results just as good as lossless compression methods. But at lower quality, I've seen artifacts on the printed result. So for JPEG, I discourage any quality other than maximum. Or use lossless compression, zip. Just know the PDF file size is much larger, which increases transmission time. I encourage you to stick with JPEG maximum quality. Monochrome images you don't want to downsample. A typical plate setter resolution is 2400 dots per inch. Bitmap images placed in documents rarely exceed that, so don't throw away useful information. CCITT Group 4 compression reduces these images greatly, so any excess doesn't impact file size much. Marks and bleed, I recommend crop marks and page information, but not always. With the marks, it's easy to see the page has bleed. And page information can be valuable. It tells us the document name and the time it was exported. This is helpful if there are multiple PDFs of a page, to know which is the latest and the correct one to use. But it's perfectly fine to disable both of these options, and sometimes I do. For example, a PDF of ad artwork that will be placed in another InDesign document for a magazine layout. Without marks, the result is a PDF no larger than the bleed, provided bleed is set correctly, which is vital. A page that bleeds but didn't include it in the PDF is useless. Make sure the document has bleed defined and enable the option Use Document Bleed Settings, or set the bleed manually here in the preset. That works too. Most of the time I disable include slug area, but sometimes I'll use it. An example is a perfect bound book cover, built back, spine, and front on a single page, with a slug area an inch or more around the art where marks are added for the scores each side of the spine. Include the slug area and that extra information appears in the PDF, which can be helpful. but most jobs don't need it. Two other important things to mention. First, please do not include color bars or registration marks. Maybe back in '98 when we output film and stripped it on a light table. That's in the past. Now most content goes direct to plate. So disable both of these options, unless you're making film for Grandpa's multilith in the garage. Second, if including crop marks, please increase the offset to at least the bleed value. Otherwise, crop marks creep into the bleed. We don't want that. The default value is baffling, and that Adobe still hasn't changed it after all these years. The next category is output. Printing uses colors of ink, not colors of light, so RGB doesn't work. All PDFs destined for a printing press must specify colors as CMYK or spot color. CMYK is the acronym for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. These are the colors the printing press puts on the paper. K for black instead of B, so it's not confused with blue. CMYK versus RGB color is a topic all its own, which I'll make a future video about. Check the description for a link, which I'll add once a video is ready. Just know that for print, PDFs must be CMYK. You could go through all the images used in the document and convert each to CMYK in Photoshop. That's what we did 20 years ago for every job, and it was tedious. But not these days. InDesign can convert the color while exporting the PDF. Then you don't have to worry about what color the images are. Here's how to do it. Set color conversion to convert to destination, preserve numbers. It's important to choose preserve numbers. What this means isn't very clear, so I'll explain. It would be better described as don't convert anything already CMYK. If you choose convert to destination without preserve numbers, the entire document goes to RGB then back to CMYK. So anything 100% black becomes RGB 0, then when reseparated becomes a CMYK build using every color. For example, all 100% black text becomes 60 cyan, 53 magenta, 48 yellow, and 78 black. We don't want that. So always use preserve numbers. Anything CMYK is untouched, and anything RGB is converted to the destination profile, which is set to the color profile the printer wants. In the US, most sheet-fed printers use GrayCall. It's an acronym for General Requirements for Applications in Commercial Offset Lithography. A mouthful, so yeah, good time for an acronym. For web, choose US Web Coded SWAP. SWAP is specifications for web offset publications. Just so you know what these cryptic terms really mean. If you are uncertain which profile to use, choose SWAP. That works even for sheetfed. The only difference is the total ink coverage. SWAP limits total ink to 300%. GrayCall and others go higher, up to 340%. Either way, the result is a PDF all CMYK, and the printer is happy. The last category is Advanced, which we skipped earlier. In the section Fonts, the default is to subset when characters used are less than 100%. 100% guarantees all fonts are subsetted, meaning the entire font isn't included, only the characters used. This is okay, but it can have drawbacks. Say the PDF is at the printer, and you found a typo, like a phone number is wrong, or a person's name misspelled. It's possible the printer could edit the PDF to make the change. However, if the font is subsetted, and the change just so happens to need a character that wasn't already used, it won't work. On the other hand, if the subset option was set to 0%, the PDF includes the entire font, and text edits are possible. Usually, it's easy enough to submit a corrected PDF, so I don't really worry about it, and end up leaving this option alone. But just so you know what the option does. OPI stands for Open Prepress Interface. Another obsolete spec, decades old, and not worth explaining. Ignore this section if not already disabled, which it should be when the X4 standard is selected. Either way, don't check any of the boxes. Last is Transparency Flattener. This should also be disabled for the X4 standard because it's irrelevant. But for the X1A standard, this area is enabled. In that case, use high resolution for the best results. Click OK to save the preset, and now it appears in the list. You can make more presets for different destination profiles, presets with and without marks, or other variations you might use regularly. Like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe so you're notified of future videos. Also, leave a comment. I always like to hear from you. All feedback is welcome. There are plenty of other tutorials. Click the video or playlist on screen for more. Thank you for watching.